So hello, welcome to the channel. Welcome to another Assetto Corsa Competizione video. Now in today's video we're going to be looking at the McLaren 720S here at Monza, and obviously this is in light of last night's race event on the XCL server, which we'll delve into at the end of this video. I'll just try and do like a little add-on at the end. I'll run the full 30-minute race. And I'll probably end up doing a bit of commentary over that race because I didn't speak once during the entire race. But I wanted to look at the setup that I'm going to be using, or that I did use during that race, and just look at a few issues with the setup itself. But one thing I wanted to cover before we actually get on to the video is someone mentioned that there's a lot of stuttering in the game itself. So to combat that, I recommend just switching off this motion blur. Running my monitor, it runs in the top corner there at 120 frames per second. Now I'm running this at 1440p on the Series X, and it seems to be stable at the 120, but as soon as I started watching one of the replays from last night, it really does start to stutter. But since turning that off, it does seem to have settled down a little bit. Hopefully that comes across in the video. So as you can see, the track conditions, the fastest lap that I set was in the middle of a race, and that's when it records your fastest lap, actual online racing. So 46.7, 146.7, but I'll show you the conditions we're running in just now. And let's get into it. So I'll just quickly look at the setup that I'm running, give you an idea where things are at. I did run two different setups and we will look at them both. I'll just run the quali setup. The race setup is purely just adding 63 or 64 litres of fuel I put in. So tow, very much different from what we're used to running in previous versions of the game. This is all the way down at 15, so it's probably like a normal kind of tow setting here, front and rear. Camber caster's not exactly maxed out, but the camber's maxed out both front and rear, and the tyre pressures we're trying to get 26.8 on all tyres throughout the race. Obviously you'll notice they're very varied tyre pressures, and Monza does seem to throw a spanner in the work when it comes to tyre pressures. Every single corner of the car seems to be very different. Traction control, I'm running 1 and 5 and 2 on the ABS. Engine map 1 and engine map 8 are very similar in the McLaren, but top speed you're going to get on engine map 1. Tyre pressures, or brakes, sorry. I am running 2 again on this one. I did run 2 the other week on the Ferrari, but yeah, 2 seems to suit me better in this car as well as the Ferrari did on the day. Again, trying to get the front of the car a little bit stiffer than the rear so we can get more rear grip. At the end of the 30-minute session that I ran in the XCL race, the rear of the car was totally shot. The tyres had totally gone at the rear. So having this kind of setup really does sort of benefit the longevity of the tyres, softening out the rear of the car. I find going all the way down to 11 or 12 just way too twitchy for me. I want to be a little bit more precise with my steering input, so 13 for me. Brake balance again, I've kind of fluctuate between 49 and 48, but I think during the race it got to a point where the rear of the car was stepping out a little bit too much, so I kind of brought that forward a bit. But 49, 48, something like that works fine. Again, I guess entering the corner, I want the car to be a little bit more stable, so a much higher preload. But it stops the car rotating a little bit on corner exit. But I feel that the car is much more stable through corner entry, around 120. Dampers, it's just the meta setup. Nothing to learn from that. But a little bit on the ride height. I kind of fluctuated between 54 and 53. Subtle changes subtle changes in the ride height and the rear wing, but we'll just have a look at those in a second on the other setup that I ran. But closing out the brake ducts any further than this just gets them overheating. So that's a setup in that one, and we'll just switch to the quali setup that I used, and the race setup is the same thing. On XCL, that's really the only changes. I added the rear wing and left the ride height as it was. No other changes at all. I just literally added one more click on the rear wing, and it just added a little bit more stability to the car. So we'll revert back to this one for now, but the only difference being in the XCL servers, the car has got a 40 kilogram weight ballast added to it because it is overpowered. It really is. But I think 40 might be a little bit too harsh. I really did struggle to get into the low 147s, and I think a 147.8 was the fastest I managed to get this car during the race itself. But it was fairly evenly matched, but it did feel like it hindered it a little bit. But I guess if everyone else driving the McLaren has got the same hindrance, it's fair all around really. So let's just take a look at a lap around the circuit. Another thing that I have noticed a lot of drivers doing, and I have tried it myself as well, if we're just going to try and warm these tyres up, if we take the traction control fully off and we get the brake balance, you can see down the right hand corner I've just got it sort of hovering. I've got a little bit of brake input, and I'm going to rev the engine fully whack and just let off. So we're just smoking up them rear tyres. Just puts a bit of I'll actually drive over the start finish line here because I'm sure it'll register, but just to see how much life we take out the tyre. First laps of the day, you can see that heat in the rear tyres now as well. In fact, we are actually on a hot lap session, so as I go over the start finish line, it's going to reset those tyres anyway. So let's just see if we can see those tyres in here. So, I mean, already I can't believe that's taken that much out of the tyres. We'll go to tyre set 1 and just go over the start finish line. Because it will reset them. And we'll just burn them out over the line. So just bring it down, traction control to 0. Bit of brake pedal into neutral, full acceleration, and then just let off. So then we've got some heat generated into the tyres, and we can start out the lap, and the tyres are getting nice and hot as you can see them generating that heat. But if we go back to the setup, just have a look at tyre set. So we've already taken 0.5 out of the tyres. I'm surprised it takes it out of all the tyres. So yeah, very interesting. So let's stick a new set of tyres on. And let's just run a lap. I'm just going to go straight out and try and do a good lap here. First lap of the day. So TC5, braking in a nice straight line at 150 yard board. Little squirt of acceleration, TC1. And we're going to hug this inside line all the way around here. Shortest route round the corner. Back to TC5. Braking at the mark on the side. Down to second gear. On the power. TC1. TC5. On the power, TC1, TC5, TC1, TC5 again, braking at the marker on the side, right hand side, just under the bridge. TC1 just as we go through the middle of that corner, just in the middle of Ascari. Braking just after the 150 yard board. TC1. And a really easy 147.5. So braking in a nice straight line again. Again, staying in TC1. Back to TC5. You can see it's just eating up this lap. Already very close to a 146. So 146.7 really quickly. So let's just have a little look at some of the pointers. So braking at this 150 yard board and just try and keep the steering wheel as straight as you can, coming down through the gears. And we really want to be off the brake pedal somewhere around here really. The car just feels a lot more grippy once you've come off the brake pedal. Flick the car in, get the car nice and straight, and then on the power, TC1. Really important to stay tucked in on this right hand side because it's the shortest route round the corner. You'll see the lap time. If you run around the outside the corner or the middle of the corner, look at the delta, and then run around the inside of the corner, you'll notice you probably gain about, I don't know, half a tenth through that corner. So braking just before this marker then on the right hand side. Down to second gear. We're going to stay in second gear, be lifting off the brake pedal somewhere around here. If you're not getting down slow enough, you're just going to run deep into this corner and it really does compromise the exit. You want to be on the power fully flat in second gear before that apex. Into TC1, accelerating off, and just as you kind of go into fourth gear, somewhere around here we'll be dropping down to third gear, a little bit of brake pedal, then off the brake pedal, and then you should be back on the power somewhere around there. Braking at this 50 yard board, And if you see just across to the right hand side of the circuit, if someone destroys that 50-yard board, look at the other side of the circuit for the white marker on the Arco barrier. So just want to be glancing the inside of this curb. The McLaren does run this curb alright, but it does unsettle the car, so I really wouldn't want to touch it. But just clipping the inside of this curb. Let the car run wide, all the way, use the exit. Don't clip right to the end of that curb because it just unsettles the car. TC5. One of the most important corners on this circuit. So braking just at the marker, the marshal on the right hand side there. Down to third gear. Now you can't mount this curb right at the very start, but you can mount it somewhere around here. So throwing the car over the curb, we're going to be trying to hook up this inside line here. And at this point here, really, you really want to be fully flat on the power already, really. But from here onwards, we're going to drop to TC1 because the car's settled, it's got all the grip at the rear, we're in a straight line, and we're just using this to accelerate round and get the rear of the car to rotate. Accelerating down to the very last corner, parabolica, in TC5. And I just start to brake in a straight line, sort of heading towards this apex around the middle of between the 50 and the 100-yard board, getting the car down to third gear. Don't get too tight on this inside curb because it just drags you in, but really keeping with the apex. And then letting the car drift wide, back into TC1 to get the car rotating on the exit, and then across the line. And I always try and think about hitting this marker here, the bollard going into the pit lane. On this line here, you want to be hitting about 144 to be heading across the line for a good lap, a 146, 147. And there's the lap. I hope you enjoy the race. I'll put the race just after this video. I hope you enjoy the setup. And until next time, ciao for now.